Food is a very intimate relationship. We are ingesting something into our bodies, right? We are welcoming a foreign substance and feeding ourselves with it. And that means enjoying the experience.
Welcome back. We're your hosts, Savannah
and Kaylin.
We're going to talk a little bit about intuitive eating, which I know you're very familiar with, Dr. Tania. So the first question I wanted to ask is, what is intuitive eating and how does it differ from dieting?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a huge fan of intuitive eating. I had the pleasure of working with a registered dietitian. And I don't know if she'd like kudos or not, but her name is Emily Stewart, and she's a wonderful dietitian. She now has a private practice, actually in Tampa, if I'm not mistaken. And she worked and she could potentially even be a kind of a speaker here to go more in depth. But
we would love that.
She introduced me to kind of the concept as well, and really reinforced it. And I had known about the concept previously when I worked at Wesleyan University. Intuitive eating is very much a mind-body approach. So it's very much it's kind of like a framework, right? Let's forget about diets and specific kind of things that we need to do or have to do, right? It's an approach to food and eating that focuses really on listening to your body's natural hunger and fullness cues. And it's really about using your own internal wisdom and your own preferences when it comes to food choices. So we all have certain preferences for different foods. We all have different cultural, social backgrounds. We all have our own unique experiences. We obviously all have our own taste buds, right? And so it's basically honoring that and your medical needs, your nutritional needs, your goals, whether that's health related, whether that's fitness related. And it's intuitive eating. I like to think of it as very much like the opposite of traditional dieting, where dieting involves very strict rules that typically involves calorie counting, external guidelines for what to eat, when to eat, what not to eat. So it really differs in lots of different ways. And it basically has 10 principles. So think of it as like they dumbed it down for people to digest it. Think of it as like 10 different concepts that if you weave the concepts together, you'll create a different relationship with food. So I'm happy to kind of talk quickly about the 10 different concepts if that would be.
That was going to be my second question. So that is perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. So, and again, I may not have this, fully in order because there's 10 principles and you can wax and wean. But the first is kind of rejecting diet culture, right? And so when we think of all of these diets out there that are so restrictive, so unrealistic, they impose so much of their own way. And here intuitive eating is like, you know what, put the whole diet to the side and we're not going to label foods as good or bad, because that promotes a balanced and very like judgmental, like an unbalanced and a very judgmental approach to eating. We're going to now promote a very inclusive environment to foods. We're going to have the unconditional positive regard for all foods, right? Whether it's the decadent piece of chocolate cake that I personally love or the pint of organic blueberries, right?
Yeah.
Whichever it is, food is food is food. Right? Yes, there are different nutritional properties, but at the end of the day, it's food, right? And we have to understand that our relationship with food is the thing that really needs to change. Not necessarily what we eat, but also how we regard what we're eating.
Absolutely.
Right?
It's so hard to do.
Yeah. So the diet culture makes billions of dollars every year. And obviously, if there was a perfect diet, we wouldn't have other diets, right? We wouldn't be seeking other diets, right? So let's kind of take away, let's reject the diet culture and mentality, and let's allow for intuitive eating to happen. So the first thing that is really important with intuitive eating is that we have to honor our own biological needs, right? Food is nourishment. We know that our human body cannot go without food for X amount of days. I don't know how long it is, but we need nourishment. We need to nourish ourselves. We have a heart that's beating. We have organs that are working. We have a mouth that is talking. We have bodily processes going on. And without food, we can't sustain it, right?
Right.
So we have to honor our bodily cravings, and we have to get in touch with how we experience hunger and how we experience satiety, meaning the feeling of fullness, right? We have to honor our hormonal balance of ghrelin and leptin, right? Which are the two hormones that really dictate appetite, right? And satiety. And so with that, we create an understanding of, okay, I can enjoy this food without guilt or shame, and I know that I am hungry, right?
Yeah.
Or I know that I am not hungry right now. So there's a hunger fullness scale, and I can certainly provide it in the resource packet at the end. But there's a great hunger fullness scale that really takes you from 0 to 10, and you can check in with where are you at? Are you ravenous and you could eat anything in sight, or are you very, very full and you feel sick because of the fullness?
Yeah.
So we want to kind of put a quantifiable number of honoring our cravings and honoring our hunger and fullness. And that starts with, which leads me to the third principle of really creating kind of like enjoyment for food, right? So as we're eating, we want to focus on the pleasure of eating, of savoring that food, right? Food is a very intimate relationship. We are ingesting something into our bodies, right? We are welcoming a foreign substance and feeding ourselves with it. And that means enjoying the experience. So I joke a lot. I used to have a friend who was a fitness enthusiast, and he wanted to become a bodybuilder and what have you. And he was eating egg whites and broccoli morning, lunch, and dinner, right? Or he would mix it up with like a piece of salmon or chicken breast. And it was always the same thing over and over and over again. And I knew that I knew exactly what his diet was like. There was no enjoyment of food for him, right? He didn't focus on the pleasure of eating anymore. And so, you can imagine he had an aversion to those foods after a couple months of eating that. So we want to enjoy the food that we're eating. And we live in a society that is so abundant with different foods. We can just take a stroll to the grocery store, Walmart, Publix, what have you, and Whole Foods, see like so many different cultures and textures and scents and aromas and colors. And we need to really kind of embrace food for what it is and find enjoyment in it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's an important point. The next important point is body respect, right? And so intuitive eating really promotes a lot of respect and body positivity. And it encourages people to really accept their bodies as they are, not judging their worth on weight or appearance. Respecting your body for what it's doing and respecting your journey, right? So all of us have different journeys in life, different circumstances with family members, with genetics, with peers, academics, right? We all have a journey, and sometimes we may engage or have engaged in emotional eating or, quote unquote, poorer healthy choices. And and as a result, we are who we are today, right? And so intuitive eating focuses on respecting your journey, your body, having an acceptance of where you are, and knowing that, hey, if you want to change that in the future, if you want to change your body composition, nothing prevents you, but you need to do it in a sustainable, healthy, happy way, right? That is based in respect for yourself, right? And so with that, we create emotional awareness, where now we're understanding the emotional pulls of perhaps eating from a place of emotion, where perhaps we're binge eating, perhaps we're eating beyond when we're full, perhaps we're coping with emotions through eating food, right? Maybe we're trying to repress the void, or maybe we're trying to feel better by eating. But are we physically hungry, or are we emotionally hungry? right?
Yeah.
And so in my work, I really think of incorporating the elements of, okay, let's understand your hunger, right? Like, is it really biological hunger? When was the last time you ate? And if it isn't biological hunger, it must be a different kind of hunger and thirst.
Right.
And a lot of times that's
I love that.
the emotional need that comes up. So that's another principle.
Happens to me when I'm bored. If I'm bored, I get hungry. I'm like, let me find something for me to do.
And that's like listening to your body, right? Like maybe your body is encouraging you to eat, but maybe boredom, you want to be stimulated with something else. So just paying attention to your body's like signals for hunger and fullness and satisfaction, and then stopping when you're feeling satisfied. And even if that means grabbing a doggy bag home, or even if that means, maybe stopping halfway and sharing your meal with someone else, like you can definitely just listen to your body a little bit more and reject those rules and honor your cravings and focus on emotional awareness, respecting your body, the enjoyment of food. And then the very last concept is health from a holistic perspective. So intuitive eating is not a weight loss strategy. It recognizes that health is more important than just physical health. Mental health also matters too. And it considers the mental and the emotional well-being of a person as a really integral part of overall health. So while dieting focuses on external rules and restrictions and deprivations and food labeling, right? Good food, bad food, or focusing on weight, like how much do you weigh and a specific number, or short-term results, intuitive eating focuses on all of the opposite of that. So emotions are not ignored. Body image is embraced, and that a positive body image with yourself, with your relationship with yourself, is reinforced. It's just such a beautiful, like freeing framework that we are so not used to in this society, because again, we grew up with so many diets and so many different labels.
For sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing those principles. It's very, very helpful.